Today we're taking a look at a club that, well, let's just say it bucks tradition. It bucks traditional golf clubs. It's a golf club that's designed for everyday players, people who still love the game, but maybe they got a little bit of back pain or slower club head speed. It's called the Max Vert. I'm PGA teaching professional Todd Cope. I'm Director of Instruction for US Golf TV. And I gotta tell you this, I don't wanna bang on the big manufacturers, but they typically design golf clubs with better players in mind. People who play the game for a living, maybe they have their name in their bag or they're playing in scratch tournaments. But the truth of the matter is, for myself and a lot of the people that I see, and probably for you out there, we love golf just as much as they do, but golf can be difficult and challenging because of the clubs that we're using. So when we set out to design this club right here, it's called the Max Vert. We're pretty proud of it. We put some specific design features in there that make getting the driver, getting the ball up in the air easier, make hitting a nice high baby draw a reality, and make hitting the center of the face something that was actually possible, not just 1 out of every 10 shots. So let me walk through a couple of the specific features of the Max Vert that are really changing the game for a lot of golfers. The first one is what we call the vertical shaft. When we designed the Max Vert, we built the shaft angle to be a little bit more vertical. And you found some of our stuff here, you know we've got the whole vertical line swing system. And what we have found is that when the shaft angle sits a little bit more vertical, what it helps us do is it helps us swing the club more straight back and up. Now, a lot of traditional drivers, they have a shaft angle that's more flat and around because the club is longer, right? And when the club shaft angle is set low, just naturally, golfers are going to want to swing the club more around. Just think about it for a second. Think about your putter. Your putter's got the most vertical shaft angle. It's the club you stand the closest to. And then therefore, it's the club that swings the most straight back and up. The longer the club gets, the flatter the shaft angle gets, the more golfers are gonna wanna swing the club around their body. So when I worked with the team, I said, hey, give me a club that's got a little bit more vertical shaft so that the golfer naturally swings the club more straight back and up. And when the club works more straight back and up, we get length to swing. And when you get length to your swing, you get more club head speed and more distance, hopefully, down the center of the fairway. Now, speaking of the center of the fairway, the other thing that a lot of golfers struggle with is curvature. Typically, a lot of golfers slice it, but the Max Vert is what we call draw biased. It helps promote a draw. So what does that mean? Well, the first thing is we've got this thing right here. Notice where the shaft angle is at here. We've got it over a little bit. We call that the shaft shift. You heard me say it right. I'm not going to try to say it 10 times in a row, but it's called shaft shift. Now, when we take the shaft angle and we move it over slightly, what that does is it makes releasing the club a little bit easier because it moves the shaft more towards what we'll just call it the center of mass, the center of really where we want to move the club. So by moving that shaft angle over a little bit, the shaft shift, it makes it easier to get the club face squared up, which is going to promote that nice high draw. So the other thing that a lot of golfers struggle with, and this might be the case for you with slower swing speeds, is getting the golf ball up in the air. One of the things that I always look for when I'm giving a golf lesson is, what's the launch angle of the driver? If I want them to get more distance, the first thing I got to do is get the golf ball up in the air with a little bit more carry. So we put 11 degrees of loft on the Max Vert. Now, why 11? Well, because a lot of traditional drivers, they might have 9, 10 degrees, some of them even 8, okay? But what I have found, and what we've tested over the years, that 11 degrees is pretty much the optimum loft on a driver to give us that launch angle that we're looking for based on the swing speed that you, the regular golfer, has. So 11 degrees of loft. When I go ahead and set that in, let me just go ahead and hit a shot actually. When I set that down, that 11 degrees of loft, ooh, that was hot. It's gonna launch that ball naturally up in the air. So you're not trying to feel like you gotta lift it, you're not trying to scoop it, you're not trying to get the golf ball up in the air because you've already got the proper loft. Now, a couple other features that are important. So we've got the vertical shaft so we can get some length to the swing, right? More length of swing is gonna give you more club head speed. All right, we've got the shaft shift, right, which helps us square the club face. All right, but one of the basic things that golfers struggle with is just literally aiming the driver. See, because a typical driver on the face of it is kind of rounded and kind of curved. So it's what we call bulge and roll, all right? But it makes aiming the driver difficult. So we put this red line on top. We call it the fairway finder. And one of our students named it that because when we were testing it out, they just aimed that line right down the center of the fairway. And they said, Todd, this thing is so easy to aim, I think you should call it the fairway finder. So there's the name. We just literally take the red line, we point it right down the center of the fairway. Now we know that the club face is aimed perfectly. Now, that line is gonna get that face squared up. But a couple other things that from a coaching standpoint that I like about it is it helps also create a square line for my feet, my hips, and my shoulders. All right, so as the clubs get longer, it makes it more difficult to aim. So by taking that fairway finder, the red line, pointing it down the center of the face, much like you do with your putter, right? Your putter's got a line on it. Why doesn't your driver have a line on it? Got to be asking yourself that. So we put that there. Now I've got a nice square line that I can line up my feet. So I've got everything nice and square. So a little bit on the vertical line shaft. We've got the shaft shift. We've got the fairway finder, but I got two other things I got to show you here that are really making a difference for golfers. On the bottom here is what we got, the perimeter payload. Now we've added some extra weight to the heel. Driver heads are big. Matter of fact, we made the Max Vert slightly smaller than some of the traditional drivers because these heads are so big. Golfers were telling me, let's say like, Todd, I can't feel the club head. I don't know where it's at. There's just this big, huge thing out there. How do I find the center of the face? So we made the driver, the Max Vert, just slightly smaller, but with a huge sweet spot. And by doing that and adding the perimeter payload on the heel, that extra weighting on the heel helps us square the club face. Let's go ahead and hit another one here. So I've got that vertical line shaft angle. I've got the shaft shift, the fairway finder, so I've got my aim down. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and swing it. I don't need to force the release because the perimeter payload is gonna help me do that. Ooh. I don't know if you could see that. That thing launched high and with the baby draw. I love that little draw bias. When that ball draws just a little bit, it rolls out 20, 30, 40 yards. All right, now I got one other thing here I got to show you, and that's right here in the face. My main man Nick, he came up with this. It's called the Hex Flex, right here, right in the face. And this seems almost so basic, much like the fairway finder line, but a lot of golfers say, where's the center of the face on the driver? Where should I actually be hitting it? It's such a big face, where should I hit it? So I said, all right, let's tell them where we wanted to hit it. So we put the Hex Flex right there. Now what does that do? Well, number one is it just tells you where the center of the face is, right? But here's why I like it from a coaching standpoint. Because one of the things that's important when hitting a driver is a good takeaway, a good what we call transition away from the golf ball. And if you've watched any of our stuff, you know that I love to hover the driver. So we took the Hex Flex, and if we hover the driver and we put the Hex Flex right behind the golf ball, I know right where I want things to return to. Let's go ahead and hit another one here. So I'm just lining up the Hex Flex to the center of the ball. There it is. That's where I want it to return to. Oh, that's the best one of the day right there. Gosh darn it, that thing's, I love that. I love that 11 degrees of loft because it just naturally gets the golf ball up in the air. The vertical shaft gives more length to the swing, which means more distance. The shaft shift and the perimeter payload makes squaring the face super easy. I don't have to even think about it. You just swing it and you naturally get a square face. I've got the fairway finder line, so I know how to aim simple and easy every single time. 11 degrees of loft, perfect loft. I'm not standing up, I'm not scooping, I'm not lifting to try to get that golf ball in the air because I've got proper loft to naturally send it where it needs to go. And ultimately, I want to hit the ball in the center of the face. You hit the ball in the center of the face, it's going to go a lot longer, not only straight, but also a lot further with a nice little bit of a baby draw. So the Max Vert is the first club that's ever been designed from the beginning with you in mind, and I can promise you this, it's going to help you enjoy this game.